Welcome everyone. I am really just so glad you could make it today for our webinar entitled Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home. My name is Merv Miller. I'm an attorney and I'm going to be your speaker today. Now, even though the title refers to a nursing home, I don't want you to get concerned if your situation has to do with assisted living facilities or in-home nursing care. And that's because we're going to be discussing a government benefit that really applies equally to all of them. And I want you to understand that this benefit has been simply life-changing for hundreds of our clients, and it can be for you too. Now, before we get started, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. First, you should be seeing a photo of me. If you're not, then your video is not working quite right and you need to get that corrected before you go forward. Second, make sure your media player is showing in full screen. Otherwise, some of the slides we're going to be showing are going to be cut off and you won't be seeing them all. Now, the instructions, if you don't already know, on how to get your media player into full screen are on the landing page. Now, that's the page from which you linked to this webinar. So if you need to, just hit your back button in your web browser and then read about how to get into full screen, and then you can just start the webinar again. And last, this webinar, please remember, has been pre-recorded. Now we will, toward the end of the webinar, be giving you a method by which you can get your questions answered. But since this is pre-recorded, obviously we're going to be unable to answer any questions right now. So with that, let's get started. First, the title of our presentation. What we're going to be talking about is how not to go broke in a nursing home, assisted living facility, or with private duty nursing. And we're going to be focusing on the VA pension benefit. Now, the first thing on your mind may well be, well, who am I? Who is this guy who's talking to me? I'm an attorney who practices in two areas of the law. First, I do traditional estate planning. So that would be designing and drafting wills and trusts and powers of attorney, dealing with the estate when the person dies, what we might call tying up the loose ends. Now, the other side of my practice, and to me the far more specialized and urgent side, is what we do when there's no time to plan ahead. We call that elder law. If the person had time, we do a will, we do a trust, we do a power of attorney, we do all of those things. But when there isn't time, obviously, we just can't do that. Now, here's our website. Lots of great information on estate planning, estate administration, Medi-Cal, VA, many other things. I'll give you the address, but it's plastered over everything on our website that you came to this webinar from, www.aboutlivingtrust.com. So if you're looking for great information, that's really a great place to start. Now, those of you who are listening to this webinar, you may be in an assisted living facility. Maybe you're not going into an assisted living facility tonight, but you may have loved ones in a nursing home or an assisted living facility. You're seeing them decline. For them, long-term care insurance is really no longer an option. So we're dealing with something far more urgent, and that is the elder law side of the practice, the legal practice that we have. Now, I was admitted to the State Bar of California in 1974. I'm board certified as a specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law by the State Bar of California. That's a state government agency, so consider that. And I have a master's degree in financial services with emphasis in estate planning. Now, the second and third points I think are really important because what they say is I'm specialized, I'm not a jack of all trades. I just don't think that one can do everything and know everything. I want people to get top-notch solutions, and the only way that I believe that can be done is if one specializes in only a few areas. Now let's talk a little bit more about my background. I've been a teacher, an author, and a columnist. And I'm accredited by the Veterans Administration. There is my accreditation number, 9055, so you can look me up on the VA website if you like. And I'm a member of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. I've been involved in helping families not go broke in nursing home situations for decades. Now, if you happen to live in the northern part of San Diego County, you may remember the old North County Blade Citizen, predecessor to the present North County Times. I wrote a legal column for them for 15 years. One column a week. This is one of them. This is from the early 90s. Has to do with irrevocable trusts for Medi-Cal claims. So you can see that we're not a Johnny-come-lately to this particular arena. Now, some people ask me, actually a lot of people ask me, about the competition from other elder law attorneys. But that's not really significant competition. My biggest competition is the family who doesn't know that something can be done. And when you think about it, if you don't think anything can be done, and the money is going out, it's going out, and what you have in the bank is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, pretty much there's nothing that can be done when it's all gone, right? When it's all gone, you can't do anything anymore. So that's my biggest competition, the family that just thinks nothing can be done. And that gets us into becoming eligible for a really unknown benefit, what's referred to as the veteran's pension or the widow's veteran's pension. So let's talk a little bit about my involvement in helping families gain this VA benefit. Here's our track record. This says we've counseled over 200 families in VA matters. It's closer to 300 now. We have over a 97% success rate for VA cases we've filed. We've brought in an estimated over $6 million of VA money to our families. Now, I think that's a lot of money. Obviously, that's not in my pocket. It's spread out over all of our families, but still, that's a lot of money that we've brought in, and we're very proud of that. So, the point here is we have a lot of experience in this field. We've helped a lot of families. We're not a babe in the woods. But I do want to give you the caveat. Keep in mind that the VA makes all final decisions. We do not. So this is not a guarantee or a warranty regarding the outcome of your case. Every case rests on its own facts, and yours will too. But nevertheless, that has been our track record. So let's talk a little bit about this pension, this VA pension. A lot of people say, well, is it new? Well, not exactly. It was established in 1789 by Congress. That's been a few years, I guess. Now, obviously, it's changed a lot over the years. The last major change was in 1960, and that's the program that we're dealing with today. Here's the technical name for it, the Non-Service-Connected Disability Improved Pension Program, and that's obviously a bit of a mouthful. So it's commonly referred to as the Aid and Attendance Benefit. So as we get into this, let's set up our scenario. The problem is that the expenses at the assisted living facility are simply more than the income. I mean, that's the issue. There's more going out than is coming in. And that brings me to the story of the uncle of a very, very good friend of mine, his Uncle Frank. So we'll use the story of Uncle Frank as our case study as we go through this. Well, Uncle Frank served in World War II. He had life savings of $180,000 at the credit union down the street. He did not own a home, and Uncle Frank needed assisted living. Now, Uncle Frank had applied for the benefit, and he'd been turned down time after time after time. Finally, the family members stepped in to help him and get him qualified. Now, I said that Uncle Frank was in World War II. The interesting thing is he never served in the Pacific Theater or the European theaters. So exactly where did Uncle Frank serve? Well, During the war, he was stationed in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. Army Band, and that's where he served his time. If I recall correctly, he played the flute. Right now he's in an assisted living facility in Duluth, Minnesota, with that life savings of $180,000 and no home. So let's take a look at what we have here, and I'm going to use my cursor to kind of point out the relevant things that you should be looking at. But he has income from Social Security of $1,000. After he got out of the Army, he worked for General Electric for quite some time, so he had a pension from General Electric of $800. So his total monthly income was $1,800. Now let's take a look at the flip side of the coin. What were his expenses? Well, after all was said and done, he was getting charged by the assisted living facility $4,000 per month. Well, we're running a deficit, aren't we? We have total monthly income of $1,800. We have total monthly expenses, total deductible expenses of $4,000. So we have a monthly deficit of a little over $2,000 and an annual deficit of something over $26,000. And obviously that has to come out of savings to stay at the facility because the facility has to be paid, right? So remember that $180,000 he had? Well, that dwindles every year, doesn't it? So on day one, he has the $180,000. As we start feeding that $26,000 per year deficit, the second year $153,000, the third year $127,000, and it keeps on ratcheting down until the end of year 6 when he has a little over $21,000, but in year 7 he's got to come up with another $26,000. So he's going to be in the hole, isn't he? There's going to be a minus number there. But because the family was determined to obtain the benefit, let's take a look at what a difference it made in Uncle Frank's life. So after he has the VA benefit, his income, Social Security, never changes. GE pension is the same, but now we have the aid and attendance benefit of a little over $1,500. Now it's more than that now, but when Uncle Frank qualified, that's what it is. So we'll use that number. So he has total monthly income of a little over $3,300 per month. And the flip side of the coin, of course, are the expenses. They're the same, $4,000 per month. So here's our comparison again, income and expenses. And again, you can see the income, $3,300, the total expenses, $4,000. He still has a monthly deficit of almost $700, but that's a lot less than it was before. And his annual deficit is only about $8,000. So we're doing a lot better than we were before. If you'll recall, before the benefit, he had a deficit of about $26,000 a year. So again, the deficit has to be fed from somewhere, and that's going to come out of his savings. So again, he starts off on day one with $180,000, and it ratchets downward each year, $171,000, $163,000. But remember in year 7 before he ran into the negative, now he has almost $123,000 in year 7. So we're doing just a world of difference better. And all of this was due simply because he had the aid and attendance benefit. Now, we expect Uncle Frank is going to live at least 10 years, so that's why we've run this out 10 years. Let's take a look at a comparison without the pension and with the pension. You'll see without the pension, in year 3 he hit $100,000. With the pension, he doesn't really hit that until year 10. And in year 7, he's negative 20. He's negative, and he's got to come up with $26,000, and he doesn't have that much. In year 7 with the pension, he has a full $123,000. So the difference is just, you know, the same words I used at the outset here, life-changing. Without the aid and attendance benefit, the family would have had to chip in until his anticipated death in 10 years. They would have been out of pocket $84,000. But because of the aid and attendance program, Uncle Frank was self-sustaining. He didn't need the help of the family. He was on his own. At the end of 10 years, he has almost $100,000 left in the credit union account. If you want to take a look at it from an algebraic difference between the plus and minus numbers, it's over $182,000. Now, I can't tell you how many people, when you first approach them, say, well, this program can't possibly be true. It's too good to be true. Well, it is. Remember that slide a little bit before that I showed you. We brought in over $6 million for our clients so far. It is real. So you can see this program can be enormously helpful. Let's take a look at what the VA is paying right now. The maximum pension rate is what they call it. For 2010, it's tied to the cost of living. So when Social Security goes up, the pension goes up. Social Security hasn't gone up for the last 2 years. The VA pension has not either, so 2011 is the same as this. And how much you're going to get paid depends on how they categorize you. I have two categories here. So here's a veteran with a spouse and what they call rated in need of aid and attendance. Rated is nothing more than the VA agrees that you need the aid and attendance of another person to help you with your activities of daily living. What are activities of daily living? Ambulating, walking basically. Hygiene, cleaning yourself, showering, feeding yourself, preparing your meals, even drug management, remembering to take your meds. That's an activity of daily living. So all of those types of things that we all do just merely because we're human beings are what is classified as activities of daily living. So if you need the help of someone else to do that, then you are rated A&A, or in need of aid and attendance. So if this is your category, the maximum monthly pension is $1,950, annual a little over $23,000. If you're a surviving spouse rated A&A, it's going to be about half of that. You can see monthly pension of a little over $1,000, yearly about $12,700. Now, if you think about it, this is the equivalent of having a nest egg set aside that you can draw on. And that's what the government basically is providing. First of all, it is all income tax free. As I said, it adjusts for the cost of living typically every year. But when we put it into dollar numbers, how much of a nest egg would you need to be able to pay that $1,950 a month, let's say like Uncle Frank, for 10 years? We would then call it an annuity, but it's nothing more than a lump of money on the side that you can draw from. And based on these assumptions that I have over here on the left, it would be $23,400 a year for that annuity amount. The cash you would need would be a little over $202,000. That's a pretty nice nest egg the government's providing. Or if you're a surviving spouse and the annuity amount is $12,700, you'd need about $110,000 set aside. Now, notice that this is assuming no built-in cost of living increases. The VA pension does provide cost of living increases, so the nest egg would actually have to be higher than this to be able to handle that. Now, at this point, you're probably saying, okay, well, what do I need to qualify? So let's take a look at that. The VA pension, what are the requirements? There are really three different requirements that you have to meet. The first one is you have to have a particular veteran status, and in a moment we'll talk about each one in detail. The second one is your financial status on net worth, and the third one has to do with your income. So let's break that down. On the veteran status side, you had to serve at least 90 consecutive days in the military active duty. Now, we'll get to surviving spouse in a second, so if you are looking at this from a surviving spouse angle, you yourself don't have to be the veteran, and we'll get to that in a second. But if you're If we're taking a look at the veteran status, you had to serve at least 90 consecutive days active duty, at least one day during a time of war. Now remember Uncle Frank, he did not serve in a theater of war, but he did serve during a time of war. So you could be the Marine Guard at the Paris Embassy during the Vietnam era, and that would qualify. And you have to have an honorable discharge, although there are certain other types of discharges may also be sufficient. If you're a surviving spouse, then the spouse to whom you were married had to meet all of those veteran requirements, plus you must have been married to the veteran when he died, and in most cases you have not remarried. That is the VA's definition of surviving spouse. Now here's our war periods. I don't think there's too many people left over from the Mexican border period, although I guess there could be some surviving spouses. Most of the people we talk to are World War II, which is over here, Korea, and some Vietnam now. You may remember from your 8th grade government class that Congress declares war, and the date that they declare that war is what we have here for the start date. So these are the start dates. Well, Congress also declares the ending of the war, so it doesn't quite match up with what the history books might tell us. The Japanese surrender taken on the battleship in Tokyo Bay occurred somewhat earlier than December 31, 1946, but this was the ending date as declared by Congress. So most people, they either fit into this or they don't. There's not a whole lot that we can do with veteran status. Either you have it or you don't in almost all cases. But let's take a look at the financial status on the net worth side. First, you can have no more than approximately $20,000 to $40,000. It's sort of a complex formula, but you can think in those terms. And it doesn't sound like much, but the house is exempt. We don't count that. Pretty much everything else is counted, however. And if you're married, the couple is treated as one budget unit, so it doesn't matter whether it's the husband's assets, the wife's assets, or both of those. You're treated as one budget unit in almost all cases. Well, what about the income side? What are the rules there? First of all, we're going to take the gross income. In other words, for Social Security, let's assume Social Security generally takes out something to cover Medicare Part B. We're talking about the gross income before they take anything out, and then from that we deduct what the VA considers to be medical expenses that are unreimbursed. Well, who would they be reimbursed by? Well, long-term care. So if there is long-term care insurance, that might reimburse them, in which case we would not count them as a deduction. So we're taking gross income minus the medical expenses to come up with what you and I might call net income. If you're married, that number has to be less than approximately $2,000. Again, a fairly complex formula. And if you're a surviving spouse of a veteran, less than approximately $1,000. Again, a married couple is treated as one budget unit, so it doesn't matter whether it's the husband's income or the wife's income. So for qualification, the less you have, the better. But, and here's the big deduction for most people, assisted living facility costs are deductible, typically 100%. So that falls within the definition of medical expenses as far as the VA is concerned. Similarly, in-home nursing care would typically be deductible. Skilled nursing facility would typically be deductible. What other kinds of deductions will we have? Well, Medicare Part B, Medicare Part D, if you have a Medicare supplement policy, if you have long-term care insurance premium that you're paying, dental coverage, coverage for your glasses, all those types of things would typically be deductible from your gross income, as are some other things. but these are the big ones. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we do. We offer a complimentary VA pension eligibility assessment. If you're currently eligible, we're going to tell you how you can apply and send you extremely detailed instructions so that you can get the benefit. If you're not currently eligible due to excess net worth or income, we're going to tell you how you can become eligible and work with you to make that happen. Now, there are several different types of people that one can consult to help you obtain this benefit. So let's go through the different groups and see what the pluses and minuses are. The first one is accredited but not an attorney. Well, you can go to the Veterans Administration. They have representatives who will counsel and help you. If you're in San Diego, it's down in Mission Valley. They have a building down there, and you can walk on in. Now, I don't know whether you're one of those prone to do this, but let me just give you some information on that. And the best analysis, I think, or analogy, is to refer to the IRS. Now, if you have an income tax question, most people are not going to call the Internal Revenue Service to get the answer. And indeed, the IRS a number of years ago ran a study to see how accurate the information was that was being given by their phone reps. And they had what I would call shills call in, and they found that about 1/3 of the answers that were given were erroneous. Well, the VA ran a similar study a few years ago, and their results were even worse. It was 1/3 to 2/3 that were incorrect answers. So I don't know that that's the best place to go with your questions, and I'll go you one further. If you call the Veterans Administration today and you ask them, tell me about your aid and attendance program, you've got a very good possibility of that phone rep telling you, we don't have anything like that. Nothing like that exists. And technically, that person would be correct because there is no benefit program that is known as the aid and attendance program. Rather, it's known as the non-service connected improved pension program, long name that I gave you at the beginning of the webinar. So you don't want to take that chance. So what's the second group? Second group is a VSO. That stands for Veterans Service Organization. That would be Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion. The VA has accredited a number of different VSOs. I think there's 84 of them that they have accredited. And you can go to them, and they have representatives who can do the same thing as the representative at the Veterans Administration. Third individual or category, I guess, is an accredited agent. Now, this is a non-attorney who is accredited by the VA and is not connected with a VSO. Very rare. Last time I looked, there were only 3 of them in California. But again, not an attorney. Now, what's wrong with all of these 3, really, is if you are not eligible, pretty much the only thing they can do is tell you you're not eligible. So that doesn't really help. They're not attorneys. They can't help you get eligible. So that brings us to the second group, not accredited and not an attorney. That's what we're talking about here. Now, what kind of group would that be? Well, that would typically be insurance and financial people. Now, they may have a grasp of VA benefit law, but keep in mind what their primary motivation is. That's to sell you an annuity or insurance product. I mean, that's how they make their money. So you have to be aware of that. Their primary solution to get you eligible is to sell you an annuity or other insurance product. And Equally importantly, they may or may not be an expert on VA benefits. They're not accredited by the VA. And possibly the most important for this group of people is they generally know almost nothing about Medi-Cal law, and they rarely take Medi-Cal into consideration in determining how to get you eligible. Now, why is that important? Well, as one's health deteriorates, nursing home is often what occurs after assisted living. And a nursing home is often 2 to 3 times or more expensive than an assisted living facility. If it's acute or subacute, it could be $10,000 to $20,000, maybe more. So the VA benefit winds up just being a drop in the bucket, and the family is now looking around for some other type of benefit, and that's usually Medi-Cal, because Medi-Cal can pay a lot more than the VA benefit when we're talking about a skilled nursing facility, which is what I'm referring to here as a nursing home. But what you did for VA eligibility may have a dramatic effect on Medi-Cal eligibility. And that's what I've just put up on the slide now. So let me give you an example. Let's say that we have a veteran and he has $120,000, similar to Uncle Frank, and he gives it away to his daughter to become VA eligible. Well, depending on how he did that, there could be what's referred to as a Medi-Cal penalty period during which he cannot receive any Medi-Cal. With $120,000, that could be approximately 20 months. That's almost 2 years. That's a long time to go in a skilled nursing facility where we're talking about maybe $10,000 a month, maybe more, without getting any kind of benefit other than the VA benefit of maybe $1,000 to $2,000. If the transfer of that $120,000 to the daughter had been done a little bit differently, it could have been as short as maybe 3 months or even less. Now that's a difference of 17 months at an average nursing home cost of a little over $6,000 a month in California at the time of recording of this webinar. That's a $102,000 difference by doing it the correct way rather than the incorrect way. Now, that's pretty significant, and I think you'll probably agree with that. So when you deal with insurance and financial people and there's no attorney involved in determining how you're going to go about becoming VA eligible, that's the risk that you run. So what about the third group? Well, the third group that you can go to for help in the VA field are attorneys. Now, you can go to your own estate planning attorney who's not VA accredited. Now, that means that he probably doesn't have any knowledge of the VA program. He could be well-meaning, he could be a superb estate planning attorney, but if he doesn't know anything about the VA program, he could be causing more harm than good. That brings us to the next type of attorney, VA-accredited California licensed attorney. So he's going to know about the VA program. But there's a third group that's even better, and that's a VA-accredited, California licensed, board-certified specialist attorney. Board-certified in estate planning, trust, and probate law is the official name for that specialty. Now, the benefit here is that if you're not currently eligible, you're probably going to need some legal work to become eligible. And what has to be done cuts across estate planning issues. So you need someone who's knowledgeable in the estate planning field in addition to the VA field. And if you have a board-certified specialist who's also VA accredited, then you pretty much have the gold standard at that point in time. So why is it important to have a local as opposed to an out-of-state attorney? Well, we've had reports of insurance agents referring VA cases off to out-of-state attorneys to advise the individual. They often charge for what we do for free. That's the first problem. The second problem is they probably don't know anything about California law. I certainly don't know very much about Colorado law or Tennessee law. It's pretty doubtful that they're going to know anything about California law. Why do we care? The VA program is federal. The VA program is the same across the country. But if you're not already eligible, the techniques used to get you eligible are almost always going to be based on California law. And again, that Colorado or Tennessee lawyer doesn't know much about California methods of doing things. It requires a knowledge of California law and how things work here. But there's an even more dangerous aspect to it. And that is, if you ever need Medi-Cal in the future, California law is going to govern, and out-of-state attorneys do not know California law. Medi-Cal, which is called Medicaid in just about every other state, is different from state to state. So if you are in California, California Medi-Cal law is going to govern if you need Medi-Cal. And these out-of-state attorneys don't know California law in almost every case. And as I said, what you did for VA eligibility often has a dramatic effect on Medi-Cal eligibility, just like we talked about with the financial and insurance people. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what is free. That complimentary pension eligibility assessment, we do not charge for that. If you're eligible, we're going to send you detailed instructions on what documents are needed, the forms that need to be completed, detailed instructions on how to have the forms completed by the facility, by the physician, to the extent of what the physician needs to say on the form in field number XYZ. I mean, it gets down to that detailed of a level. This is the exact same information that we give our own clients on this, on the cases that we actually process. Where to go to have the application filed with the VA. What phone numbers to call. Who to have actually file that application. And how to save 2 to 6 months of VA benefits with the special, commonly unknown form to make this happen. Not only that, we will give you that form. We've reduced it to a checkbox type of form. You check it this or you check it that, and it's ready to go. We'll give you the instructions on where to take it, the driving directions, what room to go to, what floor to go to, what to walk out of there with. I mean, detailed. Okay, so if we talk about what is free, then something must not be free, right? Well, a certain percentage of the people that we see, 15 to 20%, are not eligible as they stand today. They're not going to be initially eligible. And those people are going to need some legal or financial work to become eligible. Now, these services are not free, but you will be informed of any fees you need to pay prior to becoming obligated. So it's completely above board and transparent. Now, I need to caution you that this is not an easy thing to have granted. Remember Uncle Frank? He tried 3 or 4 times before the family stepped in to help. So this really is a team effort. Us, the assisted living facility staff, if you're at an assisted living facility, they'll be happy to help. In-home nursing agencies, they're happy to help. So we've got us, we've got the staff at the facility, and of course you. We can't do it without you helping you. So please don't think that you can come into our office, dump the papers on our desk, and that's it. we need you involved in it. This is a team effort, but together we can make it happen. So please, as I started off, don't think there's nothing you can do, because there is. We can help you. So please call the number on your screen to get the free eligibility assessment. There's also information on our website and a link to the free eligibility assessment in a little bit more detail. So just to summarize, we can help you save your money both now and later, preserve and protect your assets so that you can pass them on to your children, prepare you legally and financially in case you need a nursing home or Medi-Cal. Now, if you have any questions, again, obviously this is pre-recorded, you can't ask them now, but typically in that complimentary VA pension assessment, we can get all of your questions answered at that point. So please do call in. The phone number is 760-436-8832. Extension 4 is the one you want. If you get voicemail, we typically are going to get back to you within 24 hours, if not sooner, and we'll set you up for that complimentary assessment. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this was beneficial to you, and I hope that we'll be hearing from you soon. Bye-bye now.